You know, I used to be that person who'd nod along in meetings, keep my opinions to myself, and let others take the lead. Because hey, who wants to be that guy, right? But one day I realized something. Playing nice wasn't getting me anywhere. In fact, it was costing me, big time. So I decided to flip the script. And let me tell you, the world didn't fall apart when I started saying no, challenging authority, and refusing to be anyone's doormat. On the contrary, life got a whole lot more interesting. And now, I'm going to show you ways to be more assertive, even if it means ruffling a few feathers along the way. Because honestly, who cares if a few people get uncomfortable? Assertiveness isn't just a skill, it's a survival tool in a world that loves to tell you to stay in your lane. By the way, if our content has been making your day a little brighter and you want to help us reach new heights, we'd be over the moon if you'd consider supporting the channel. Your support not only keeps us fueled, but also lets us bring you even more epic content. Join our exclusive community on Patreon using the link below and get behind-the-scenes goodies, early access to new videos, and so much more. Your support is like rocket fuel for our creativity. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being a part of this amazing journey. We couldn't do it without you. Let's get into the video. 1. Speak less, say more. There was a time when I thought being assertive meant talking more, filling the room with my voice, making sure everyone knew I had something to say. But here's the catch. The more you talk, the less people listen. I learned this the hard way when I found myself in a heated debate, spewing out every thought that crossed my mind. And you know what happened? My words became noise, background chatter that people tuned out. Then, one day, a mentor of mine pulled me aside and dropped some wisdom that changed everything. If you want people to listen, say less. At first, I didn't get it. I mean, how could saying less make you more assertive? But then I started experimenting with it. I'd walk into a meeting, listen more than I spoke, and when I finally opened my mouth, I made sure what I said hit hard, straight to the point, no fluff. And let me tell you, the difference was night and day. People started paying attention, really paying attention, because when you speak less, your words carry more weight. It's like when a comedian pauses before the punchline. The silence builds anticipation, and when they finally deliver, it hits with twice the impact. So here's the controversial bit. Sometimes, the loudest person in the room is the least assertive. They might dominate the conversation, but they're not commanding respect. They're demanding attention, and there's a huge difference. Assertiveness is about making your words count, not just adding to the noise. But here's the deeper message. Silence isn't just the absence of words. It's a space where meaning is born. In those moments of quiet, when you resist the urge to fill the air with chatter, you create room for your true voice to emerge, one that's grounded in purpose, not just reaction. The power of your words doesn't come from their volume, but from their intention. In a world that's constantly shouting, where everyone is vying to be heard, sometimes the most profound and assertive thing you can do is speak softly and carry a big message. Because in the end, it's not the quantity of your words that defines you, it's the quality, the thoughtfulness, and the courage to let silence speak for you when words fall short. 2. Master the art of saying no. I used to be a chronic people pleaser. If someone asked for my help, I'd say yes before they even finished the question. It felt good to be needed, to be that reliable person everyone could count on. But after a while, I noticed something unsettling. The more I said yes, the more overwhelmed and resentful I became. I was spreading myself thin, sacrificing my own needs and priorities to keep others happy. And the worst part, it wasn't even making me happy. That's when I realized something crucial. Saying yes to everything means saying no to yourself. It's easy to get caught up in the moment, to think that helping out one more time won't hurt. But each yes chips away at your time, energy, and peace of mind. It took me a while, but I eventually learned the art of saying no, and it changed my life. Now, here's the controversial bit. Society often pressures us to be agreeable, to avoid conflict, to be liked. But the truth is, always saying yes isn't noble, it's self-destructive. Assertiveness isn't just about knowing when to speak up, it's about knowing when to draw the line. The first time I said no, it felt like I was breaking an unwritten rule. My heart pounded, and I worried about how the other person would react. But guess what? The world didn't end. In fact, most people respected my boundaries, and those who didn't, well, they showed their true colors. Saying no isn't about being selfish or unkind. It's about recognizing your own limits and valuing your time. It's about understanding that you can't pour from an empty cup, and if you keep giving and giving, there will be nothing left for you. But here's the deeper message. When you say no to others, you're saying yes to yourself. You're affirming your right to prioritize your well-being, your goals, and your peace of mind. And that's not just assertive. That's essential for living a balanced, fulfilling life. So, how do you master the art of saying no? Start small. Practice in low-stakes situations, like turning down a social invitation you're not interested in or declining to take on extra work when your plate is already full. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but with each no, you'll feel a little more empowered, a little more in control of your own life. And remember, you don't owe anyone an explanation. A simple, "I'm sorry, I can't," is enough. The more you practice, the more you'll realize that saying no isn't about letting others down. It's about lifting yourself up. Because at the end of the day, the most assertive thing you can do is protect your own boundaries. And that's something worth saying yes to. 3. Make peace with conflict. I used to avoid conflict like the plague. The mere thought of confrontation made my stomach churn. I'd go out of my way to keep things smooth, even if it meant biting my tongue or compromising my values. I thought that by avoiding conflict I was keeping the peace, but what I was really doing was betraying myself. It took a long time for me to understand this. Conflict is inevitable, and avoiding it doesn't make it go away. It just makes it worse. The more you run from conflict, the more it festers, turning small issues into bigger problems. I had to learn, sometimes painfully, that real peace doesn't come from avoiding conflict. It comes from facing it head-on and working through it. Here's the controversial truth. Conflict isn't the enemy. In fact, it's often the catalyst for growth, change, and deeper understanding. When you make peace with conflict, you stop seeing it as a threat and start seeing it as an opportunity to assert your needs, clarify misunderstandings, and build stronger relationships. But making peace with conflict doesn't mean being aggressive or confrontational for the sake of it. It's about approaching conflict with a calm, steady resolve. It's about standing your ground, even when it's uncomfortable, and knowing that it's okay to disagree, because conflict doesn't have to be destructive. It can be constructive if you handle it with intention and respect. Let me share a personal experience. There was a time at work when a colleague kept overstepping boundaries, taking credit for my ideas and undermining my contributions. I tried to brush it off, thinking it wasn't worth the drama, but it ate away at me. Finally, I decided enough was enough. I calmly confronted them, laid out the issue, and explained how their actions were affecting me. It wasn't an easy conversation, but it was necessary. To my surprise, the colleague apologized, and we worked out a better way to collaborate. The conflict wasn't pleasant, but it was productive. Making peace with conflict means accepting that not everyone will agree with you, and that's okay. It's about recognizing that sometimes the most assertive thing you can do is to stand in the storm rather than running from it. Conflict is a natural part of human interaction, and when you face it with courage and clarity, you're not just solving a problem, you're asserting your worth. 4. Be unapologetically yourself. For years, I was a master of self-editing. I'd tone down my opinions, soften my edges, and mold myself to fit the expectations of others. It was easier to blend in than to stand out, easier to be who others wanted me to be than to risk being myself. But here's the thing, every time I compromised who I really was, I felt a piece of me slipping away. The more I apologized for my true self, the more I lost touch with who I actually was. It wasn't until I hit a breaking point, a moment where I felt like I was living someone else's life, that I realized how much I was betraying myself. I decided then and there to stop apologizing for who I am. No more hiding, no more pretending, no more playing small to make others comfortable. Here's the controversial truth. Being unapologetically yourself means embracing the parts of you that others might find difficult, strange, or even confrontational. It means accepting that you won't please everyone, and that's perfectly okay. In fact, the moment you stop seeking approval from everyone around you is the moment you start living authentically. But let's be clear, being unapologetically yourself doesn't mean being rude or inconsiderate. It's not about forcing your personality onto others. It's about having the courage to be genuine, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about showing up as your true self, with all your quirks, opinions, and imperfections, without feeling the need to ask for permission or forgiveness. I remember a time when I used to downplay my passions because I was afraid of being judged. I loved horror stories and controversial topics, but I kept that side of me hidden because I thought it might turn people off. But when I finally started embracing those passions and sharing them openly, something incredible happened. Not only did I feel more authentic and alive, but I also attracted people who genuinely appreciated me for who I was. The connections I made were deeper and more meaningful because they were based on who I really am, not some watered-down version of myself. Here's the deeper message. Apologizing for who you are is like living in a cage of your own making. It's a prison built out of fear, fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of not fitting in. But when you decide to be unapologetically yourself, you break free from that cage. You give yourself permission to be the person you were always meant to be. This isn't just about assertiveness, it's about self-respect. When you stop apologizing for who you are, you send a powerful message to the world that you value yourself, that you believe in your worth. And in doing so, you inspire others to do the same. So, how do you start being unapologetically yourself? Begin by embracing your uniqueness, your strengths, your flaws, your passions, and your quirks. Stop editing yourself to fit into someone else's mold. If you love something, share it. If you believe in something, stand by it. If something doesn't resonate with you, don't force it. The right people will respect you more for being authentic, even if it means ruffling a few feathers along the way. And remember, you're not for everyone, and that's a good thing. The world doesn't need more people who are carbon copies of each other. It needs more people who are bold enough to be themselves. By being unapologetically yourself, you not only live a life that's true to you, but you also pave the way for others to do the same. So stop apologizing for who you are. The world needs the real you, and you deserve to live as the most authentic version of yourself. In the end, being unapologetically yourself isn't just a way to be assertive, it's a way to be truly free. 5. Prioritize your values over relationships. This one might sound harsh, but it's a lesson I've learned the hard way. There's no relationship worth sacrificing your core values for. For years, I believed that maintaining relationships, whether with friends, family, or colleagues, was the ultimate priority. I'd bend, I'd compromise, and I'd overlook things that didn't sit right with me just to keep the peace. But deep down, every compromise left a mark, a nagging feeling that I was betraying myself. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that relationships are the most important thing in life. And don't get me wrong, relationships matter. They enrich our lives, bring joy, and offer support. But when maintaining a relationship means you have to compromise on your values, you're entering dangerous territory. I had a close friend once who would often ask me to look the other way when they did things I wasn't comfortable with, things that went against my principles. At first, I'd brush it off, telling myself it wasn't a big deal. But each time it chipped away at me, and I found myself growing increasingly resentful. I realized that by prioritizing the friendship over my values, I was slowly eroding my own sense of integrity. Here's the controversial truth. Sometimes you have to choose between staying true to yourself and keeping a relationship intact. And the harsh reality is, not every relationship is worth preserving. If someone asks you to betray your values, whether subtly or overtly, they're not asking for your loyalty. They're asking for your complicity in something that doesn't align with who you are. But here's the deeper message. Your values are the foundation of your identity. They define who you are, what you stand for, and how you navigate the world. When you compromise those values for the sake of a relationship, you lose a part of yourself. And once you start down that path, it becomes easier to continue compromising until you're left wondering who you really are. It's not easy to prioritize your values over relationships. It can mean having difficult conversations, setting boundaries that others don't like, and sometimes letting go of people who don't respect your principles. I've had to walk away from friendships, decline opportunities, and even distance myself from family members who couldn't understand or accept my values. It was painful, but it was necessary. And in the end, I felt a sense of peace and clarity that I never had when I was trying to be everything to everyone. Being assertive means knowing what you stand for and refusing to compromise on it, no matter the cost. It's about having the courage to say, this is who I am, and these are the principles I live by, even if it means standing alone. And let's be honest, that can be incredibly lonely. But it's a loneliness that's far less painful than the loneliness of living a life that isn't true to who you are. So, how do you start prioritizing your values over relationships? First, get clear on what your core values are. What are the non-negotiables in your life? What principles do you refuse to bend on, no matter the situation? Once you're clear on these, use them as a compass to guide your relationships. If a relationship requires you to step away from your values, it's a sign that something needs to change, either the relationship itself or your involvement in it. Remember, true relationships are built on mutual respect and shared values. If someone truly cares about you, they won't ask you to compromise who you are. They'll respect your boundaries, even if they don't always agree with them. And if they don't, if they pressure you to bend, to break, to become someone you're not, then it's a relationship you're better off without. In the end, prioritizing your values over relationships isn't about being cold or uncaring. It's about having the strength to live authentically. It's about recognizing that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. And when you honor that relationship, you set the stage for others to honor it too. 6. Demand respect, not attention. In today's world, it seems like everyone is competing for attention. Social media is flooded with people vying for likes, shares, and followers, and in real life it's no different. Many are desperate to be noticed, to be the loudest voice in the room. I'll admit, I used to get caught up in that game too. I thought that if I could just get enough attention, everything else would fall into place. But I quickly learned that attention is fleeting, shallow, and ultimately unfulfilling. What really matters, and what truly lasts, is respect. Here's a controversial truth. Attention is easy to get, but respect is hard to earn. You can dress a certain way, say shocking things, or play to the crowd to get people's eyes on you. But respect requires substance. It requires character, integrity, and consistency. I had to learn this the hard way when I realized that the attention I was getting wasn't translating into the respect I wanted. People knew my name, but they didn't value what I stood for. So I decided to make a shift. I stopped focusing on how many people were watching and started focusing on how I could live in a way that demanded respect. And the first step in that process was understanding the difference between the two. Attention is about being noticed in the moment, but respect is about being valued over time. Demanding respect means being true to yourself, even when it's not the popular choice. It means setting boundaries and standing by them, even if it means losing followers or upsetting people who thrive on your attention. It's about speaking with purpose, acting with integrity, and staying consistent, even when no one is watching. Respect isn't about doing things to be seen. It's about doing things because they align with your values and principles. One of the most important lessons I've learned is that respect isn't something you can ask for. It's something you earn through your actions. For instance, in my career, there were times when I had to make tough decisions that weren't popular. I chose to prioritize what was right over what was easy or what would make me look good in the short term. At the time, it felt like I was swimming against the current, but in the long run, those decisions built a foundation of respect that has served me far better than any temporary attention ever could. Here's the deeper message. Attention is external, but respect is internal. Attention depends on the whims of others. It can be given and taken away in an instant, but respect is something you cultivate within yourself first. It's about living in a way that you can be proud of, whether anyone else notices or not. When you respect yourself, you set a standard for how others should treat you, and over time, the right people will come to respect you too. Demanding respect also means being willing to walk away from situations and people who don't give it. It's about knowing your worth and refusing to settle for anything less than being treated with dignity. This might mean letting go of relationships that are based on superficial validation or stepping away from environments that thrive on attention-seeking behavior. It's not easy, and it might feel isolating at times, but it's crucial for maintaining your self-respect and integrity. So, how do you demand respect instead of attention? Start by being clear about your values and letting them guide your actions. Don't compromise your principles for the sake of being liked or noticed. Focus on doing what's right, not what's popular. Be consistent, reliable, and true to your word. And most importantly, respect yourself first. When you hold yourself to a high standard, others will either rise to meet it or fall away, and either outcome is a win for you. In a world obsessed with instant gratification and the constant need for validation, choosing to demand respect over attention is a bold, assertive move. It's a commitment to living authentically and valuing yourself, even when the spotlight isn't on you. And in the end, respect is far more rewarding and enduring than any fleeting moment of attention could ever be. 7. Abandon the myth of nice. For the longest time, I thought being nice was the ultimate virtue. I was taught to be agreeable, accommodating, and to avoid ruffling feathers. I'd go out of my way to be pleasant, even if it meant suppressing my true feelings or letting others take advantage of me. But here's the uncomfortable truth I eventually had to face. Being nice isn't the same as being kind or respectful. It's often just a mask for avoiding conflict and denying your own needs. Let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with being polite or considerate. Those are important qualities. But when nice becomes synonymous with being a doormat, it's a problem. I learned this the hard way when I found myself constantly saying yes to things I didn't want to do, smiling through gritted teeth, and feeling resentful afterward. I was so focused on being nice that I forgot to be true to myself. Here's the controversial bit. The world doesn't need more nice people. It needs more honest, authentic people who are willing to speak their truth, even when it's uncomfortable. The myth of nice is that it makes you likable and easy to get along with, but in reality, it often makes you invisible. When you're too busy being nice, you lose your voice, your boundaries, and your sense of self-respect. I remember a time when a colleague kept piling their work onto me because they knew I wouldn't say no. I thought I was being helpful, being nice, but all I was really doing was enabling their behavior and burning myself out in the process. When I finally mustered the courage to set a boundary, it wasn't easy. I worried about being seen as difficult or unfriendly, but the relief I felt after asserting myself was worth the discomfort, and the respect I gained was far more valuable than any fleeting sense of being nice. The deeper message here is that being nice often comes at the cost of being authentic. It's rooted in the fear of rejection and the desire for approval, but true assertiveness comes from within. It's about valuing your own needs and feelings as much as those of others. It's about being kind, yes, but not at the expense of your own well-being or integrity. So how do you abandon the myth of nice? Start by recognizing the difference between being nice and being kind. Kindness is about empathy and understanding, while nice often means sacrificing your own needs to avoid conflict. Learn to say no when something doesn't align with your values or capacity, and don't be afraid to speak up when something bothers you. Being assertive doesn't mean being rude, it means being clear, honest, and direct, even if it makes others uncomfortable. Abandoning the myth of nice also means embracing the fact that not everyone will like you, and that's okay. You weren't put on this earth to please everyone. When you let go of the need to be universally liked, you free yourself to be who you truly are, flaws, strengths, and all. And the irony is, when you stop trying so hard to be nice, people will actually respect you more. The world needs people who are kind, but also strong, empathetic, but also firm in their convictions. When you abandon the myth of nice, you make space for your true self to emerge. A self that is confident, assertive, and unapologetically real. And in the end, that's far more valuable than any superficial niceness could ever be.